Welcome to the Sharee English PTE live lectures. Today's topic is fill in the blanks multiple select. This is also called read and write fill in the blanks, and this is practice session number 2. In this video you will find detailed explanations of each and every step, proven methods that are known to work, and you will get some very solid practice. So make sure that you watch this video till the very end. And if you have not already done so, don't forget to create your free account on ShareeEnglish.com and sign up for the free PTE course and many other resources. Let's go to question number 1. That's 90 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the answers now. The first blank. Iron became increasingly blank from the 13th century. Before that, the use of swords was less frequent. So something happened to iron. It became increasingly something. Now, what that something could be out of these words? The first word, iron, became increasingly common from this time period onwards, from 13th century BC, and before that it was less frequent. So that makes sense. Became increasingly common means increasingly used more, available more. The next one, commercial. Iron became increasingly commercial from the 13th century. Before that, the use of swords was less frequent. Now, grammatically, yes, it makes sense that it increasingly became commercial. Maybe before that, it could have been less commercial or sold lesser, or traded lesser. But if you look at the next sentence, which says that before that the use was less frequent, means something happened which made it more frequent, and that's why common is a better word compared to commercial. After that, you have contested. Iron became increasingly contested. Now that doesn't really make any sense. Iron became increasingly complicated. That also doesn't make much sense. So the only word that fits in here is common. The second blank. This made them blank or only slightly better in terms of strength and hardness to bronze sword. So there's or, and after or there is only slightly better. So before that, there should have been something similar which uh, shows that there's a comparison in quality, and then the considering that in mind, the only word that fits in is comparable. That this made them comparable means equal in quality or only slightly better. So that's why we use comparable here. Uh, the other words, made them expensive or only slightly better. Now, the two sides don't match really, right? If it was made them expensive or only slightly cheaper or only slightly more expensive, then it could have made sense, but not when on the other side it's slightly better. The next one, comparable. Yes, that's the one which we think is the correct one. After that, strongest, this made them strongest. Again, doesn't make any sense. And notorious, that's used in a totally different sense. Means something, which has got a bad reputation or is known for a bad reason. But that's not the case here. The next blank, but the easier production and the better blank of the raw material permitted the equipment of entire armies with metal weapons. So, easier production and the better what? What happened? What became better? That whole armies, entire armies became equipped with metal weapons. So probably, just from thinking by logic, it seems like it has something to do. Again, it became easier to get, or it became easier to access, or it became more available. That is, availability became better. So that's why we pick availability here. If you look at the other options, clearance and the better clearance of the raw material doesn't really make any sense, and the better abundance of the raw material. Now, you never say abundance, you can say and the abundance of the raw material, because abundance in itself means that there's plenty of it. Availability, yes, it's a preferred option, the right option, and properties and the better properties of the raw material. But this is not to do with the better properties or the better qualities of the raw material. This is to do with that it was easier to um, it was easier to get that raw material, and that's why availability, that makes logical sense here. The fourth blank, ancient swords are often blank at burial sites. Now look at the options. Are often sold at burial sites. Would someone sell ancient swords at burial sites? Doesn't make any sense. Found, yes, possibly. Broken at burial sites. Nope. Manufactured at burial sites. No one would manufacture something at a burial site. The sword was often placed on the right side of the corpse. So now the next sentence, it gives us more information. It says that the sword was placed on the right side of the corpse, and that's how they were buried, and that's the reason that the swords are found. So sometimes, the second part of or the subsequent sentences will tell you whether will give you the context for the statement. So in this case, we are making a statement first that ancient swords are often found at burial sites, and in the second sentence later on, it gives the context. It explains that why that happens, because the corpses, they were buried with swords on the right side. The last blank now. Thus, they might have blank swords as the most potent and powerful object. Now, when you say you might have heard this sentence or this usage before, that he's considered as the greatest, or the city is considered as the most livable city in the world. So that's the reason why considered is the correct option here. But if you look at the other options such as collected, thus they might have collected swords as the most potent and powerful objects. Now you don't collect something as, you collect something because. So there has to be a reason behind the collection. Okay, the next one, invented swords as. So you don't invent something as, you just invent something. Again, your invention can have a reason and your invention can have the impact. But so you could have said thus they might have invented swords um, because of a need for better weapons. Now that makes sense, but not swords as. The last one, thus they might have considered, they might have evolved swords as. So you don't say evolved as, you always say evolve from, because evolve means gradually improving, gradually getting better from something. So that is evolved from. In this case, therefore, the correct sentence, the correct word, the one that will go with is considered. That they thought of swords as the most potent and powerful object. Alright. Now please spend some time understanding why all of these are the correct answers, and feel free to go to the next question when you're ready after that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and start with question number 2 now. Just a minute before we go on to the next slide. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Do it now. It takes only a second and you will never miss a lecture. And please also remember to like the video and leave a comment. We love hearing from you. Number 2. All right, that's 90 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the answers. Here we are. So the first one, task-oriented blank, is a style in which the leader is focused on the tasks. So something is a style in which the leader is focused on. So we need to put in a word that adds to that goes with task-oriented, as well as makes sense that it's a style and is related to a leader. So in this case, the obvious correct answer here is leadership, that task-oriented leadership is a style. Second one, task-oriented leaders are generally more blank with producing a step-by-step solution. So you need a word here which can go with generally more, but also, it can be followed by with. So are generally more affected with. So you actually say affected by. Concentrated, you say concentrated on. That our efforts are concentrated on winning a gold medal. Concerned, yes, you show your concern, you are concerned with, so with something, with the results of something. So that seems like a correct option. But before we finalize, let's have a look at involved. So are generally more involved with producing. So usually it's your involvement is in. So if it's a process, you're involved in doing something. Okay. So the right option here is therefore concerned, that are generally more concerned. The next one, relationship oriented leadership, is a blank style in which the leader. Now, to answer this correctly, you have to understand that what they are doing in this passage. So in this passage, they first talked about one leadership style, which was task oriented leadership, and now they are talking about a second leadership style, which is relationship oriented leadership. So essentially, they're comparing, or in other words, they're contrasting. Okay, that how it compares with how it's different from. So that's why the right option here is contrasting. If you look at conflicting, is a conflicting style. So conflicting would mean that something that couldn't go along with anything else, but that's not the case in styles, right? The number of different styles can exist together. Secondary is a secondary style. Now it doesn't say that the previous style was primary, so it's not secondary. Is a premium style. So again, there's nothing to suggest that it's premium, it's better than the other. The only thing that we can safely say is that two styles are being compared, and that's why we'll go with contrasting. The third one, task-oriented leaders are typically less concerned with the idea of catering to group members and more concerned with acquiring a certain blank to meet a goal. So is it that you would acquire to meet a goal? Let's look at with acquiring a certain level to meet a goal. Uh, Maybe, but doesn't seem to be right. Acquiring a certain level of what? Acquiring a certain solution to meet a production goal. This seems like right because they're trying to do a task and they're trying to find a solution to that. With acquiring a certain influence to meet a, so you wouldn't really acquire a certain influence. You would have an influence, or you would put an influence on something. Are and more concerned with acquiring a certain satisfaction to meet a production goal. Again, doesn't make any sense here. So the right option is that the leaders are focused on getting a solution to meet a goal. The last one, the positives to having this kind of blank are the team members are more motivated and have support. Right. So the positives to having this kind of what? Uh, the team members, right? You talk about team members, you talk about leadership, goals. So all of that would come together in what? To having this kind of environment, because you often say working environment, you say office environment. So that's exactly what this refers to. The next one, the positives to having this kind of pleasure. So grammatically, it can fit in there. You can have various kinds of pleasure, but it doesn't say anything in the passage before this line that refers to that it's referring to a pleasure. Again, the positives to having this kind of behavior, again, it's not about a certain behavior. Celebration, nothing's being celebrated. So the only option that fits in here with work, with leader, with getting goals met, is that all of that happens in an environment which makes it possible. So the right option here is environment. Okay. I hope you're getting a hang of how to go about solving these questions. Keep an eye on time. But if there's a difficult question, you can always spend a bit more time on it. Um, but don't pick any option in a hurry. You should also look at the other options. You should make sure that the option that you're putting in, it makes sense with the overall passage as well. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and look at question number 3 now. All right, that's 90 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the answers. All right, the first one. However, the varieties of Mandarin cover a huge area containing blank a billion people. Now you need to find a word, which can go with saying, like approximately a billion people. So that word here is nearly. That close to a billion people are contained in that area. If you look at the other options, few, mostly, average, they all have something to do with numbers, but they don't. But they are not used in this sense where you have to say approximately or close to a billion people. So you can say cover a huge area containing a few people, but a billion is not few, so that doesn't go there. Containing mostly a billion people. Now, when you say mostly, you have it's usually like uh, most of something. So, and that something is usually an area or a demographic. So an example of that is cover a huge area containing mostly every person born in China. That would have been correct, but not in this case. Containing average a billion people. Now again, average doesn't go here. It could have been that the varieties of Mandarin cover a huge area containing, on an average, a million people in every city. That would have made sense, but just to indicate an amount to a number, it's only nearly. The next one, as a result, there are blank regional variations in pronunciation. Now you need to find a word, which adds to the regional variations. As a result, there are regional variations in pronunciation. So something which can tell, what kind of regional variations are there, or what kind of, or what's the degree of regional variations there are there. Regional variations mean that in the pronunciation, though it's one language, but it's spoken differently in different dialects in different places. Okay, so as a result, there are pronounced. So pronounced means something that's significant, that is prominent. Okay, so or in other words, easy to see. So there are prominent regional variations in pronunciation. That seems like correct. The next one, there are hypothetical regional variations, and many Mandarin varieties are not mutually intelligible. So now hypothetical would mean something which is just theoretical. So we are not doing that. Doesn't really make any logical sense here. So We let that go. The next one, principled. There are principled regional variations. Again, doesn't make any sense. There are mature regional variations. So, mature, kind of, you can say mature means which have been there for a long time. So, makes just a little meaning. But when you compare all the options, pronounced, that's much more better, and that's why we will go with it. The next one, as a result, the northeastern Mandarin dialects blank, they differ little from the Beijing dialect. So something about the dialects. Dialect is, a variation of a language. So how it's spoken. So Mandarin dialect, sold, you won't sell. Spoken, yes, you would speak. Examine, uh, maybe in a university, you would examine languages, but here they're talking about, people and languages in different areas, so won't be examined. Promoted, nope, you won't promote a language. So spoken is the obvious answer there, and therefore spoken. The next one, the frontier area of northwest and southwest China were colonized by blank of Mandarin dialects. So now, Mandarin dialect, right? Were colonized by means they settled there. So which of these groups, uh, would have a relationship with the language and can settle at a place? Traders, no. Speakers, right? Speakers, because it directly refers to links with the dialect, Mandarin dialects. So that means in these areas, speakers of these dialects settle at the same time. So that's why we go with that. Logically, sorry, grammatically, you can put in traders, teachers, historians, anything there in this blank. But since we are talking about language, and you have to be a speaker of a certain dialect, so that's why we prefer speaker here. So follow my advice from earlier questions, that in such questions, where there's more than one correct possible answer, go with the ones which convey the best meaning. Okay, and they could possibly cover the others as well. So speaker, someone who's speaking a language, can be a trader, teacher, historian as well. Okay. The last one, unlike their compatriots on the southeast coast, few Mandarin speakers engaged in blank emigration. So, immigration is, going out of the country. And what kind of immigration would it be? Especially, look at the second part. There are now significant communities of them in cities across the world. So, means, people going outside China, outside that area, all over the world. So, what kind of immigration would that be? National immigration, that would mean, maybe at the country level. Regional immigration means from one region to another. Overseas, yes, because they are talking about the world. Engaged in frequent emigration, so there's nothing which says, how much, or uh, whether it was frequent or whether it was lesser. Overseas therefore makes more sense, because especially it connects with the second part, uh, with the cities across the world. So again, I would point it out that remember to read all the parts of the sentence. Don't just judge only on the basis of the first or the second. Make sure everything that's there in the sentence and you have all the information about the context. That what exactly is the person trying to say. So the word that you pick should um, make sense in that context. Okay, shall we go to the next question now? Question number 4. Before we go on to the next slide, remember, you can get the best PTE prep, mock tests, skill builders, super methods, tips, tricks, templates, a huge question bank, and guidance from expert teachers on ShareeEnglish.com. Don't forget to create your free account and sign up for the free course on ShareeEnglish.com. Here we are. All right, that's 90 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the answers. There we are. So the first one, as oranges are sensitive to frost, there are different methods to prevent frost something to crops and trees. So they're saying that this fruit is sensitive to frost. That's related to cold, and now since they're sensitive, there are methods to prevent something that this causes. So what would you prevent out of all of these to prevent frost costs to crops? Now you never say costs to crops, and you don't prevent that. So wrong option. Cultivation again doesn't make any sense. To prevent frost impact, so you usually say impact on. In other words, you could have said that there are different methods to prevent the impact of frost on crops, but not in this case. Damage, yes, you something can cause damage to something, and that's what we would like to protect. So damage is the right option. Growth, again, you wouldn't, prevent growth, so that's the wrong option. The next one, a common process is to blank the trees with water. So what would you do to the trees with water? Spread the trees with water. How would you do that? So doesn't make any sense. Split the trees with water. You don't split the trees with water. Split means divide. Spray the trees with water. Yes, water can be sprayed on something. Spruce the trees with water. Spruce is more like, cleaning or tidying up. So again, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe if we were talking about, setting up a decorative tree or a tree shop, we could have said that, cleaning the trees with water so that they look fresh. But in this case, we are talking a general crop protection, so it's spray. The next one, this is because water blank to lose heat as long as. So what is that water? Um, Something that water could do to lose heat. Water prefers to lose heat. Nope. Water continues to lose heat. Yes, that makes sense, and especially when you look at continues as long as. So that's something that we have often heard, that this practice will be continued as long as this discount will be continued as long as the company seems right. So continues is the right option there. This is because water rises to lose heat. Nope, water evaporates to lose heat. Nope, that again doesn't make any sense in this case. So we'll go with continues. The next one, this practice, however, offers blank only for a short time. So what is something that you could offer for a short time? And this practice, you could offer a guarantee for a short time. Yes, you could do that. But now let's go back to what the context of the passage is. It's about preventing damage. It's about protecting. So protection seems more like a correct better option. But let's look at the other ones. Commitment, however, offers commitment only. Now there's nothing about committing to something. Offers benefits only for a short time. Yes, could have been correct. But when you look at protection, that fits in more with the context of the passage, and that's why you will prefer protection over benefits. The last option prevents condensation of plants and blank the air temperature very slightly. So something, condensation does something to the air temperature very slightly. What could it be? Usually, when you think about something happening to temperature, what is it? It either rises or it lowers, increases or decreases. So raises is our obvious answer here. But if you look at delivers, and delivers the air temperature, no sense. Breaks the air temperature, nope. Condenses the air temperature, you can't do that. So you can condense water, you can condense vapor, but not air temperature. So the only correct option here then is raises. It increases the air temperature, it raises the air temperature. With that, we have come to the last question of this practice session. Question number 5. That's 90 seconds. Let's go ahead and have a look at the answers now. So the very first blank, it's possible to grow orange trees blank from seeds, but they may be infertile or produce fruit, etc. So what they're talking about is growing, possible to grow orange trees, growing orange trees from seeds, and then there are different options in between: directly from seeds, frequently from seeds. Frequently from seeds doesn't make any sense. Not talking about the frequency, how soon or uh, how lesser. Mainly from seeds, possible. Yeah, it's possible, especially from seeds. Now we will not go with especially because if you remember from the earlier questions, if they were talking about like a general situation and then they have to give put focus on something specific, then they'll say especially that there are uh, a large number of methods of growing orange trees, especially from seeds. Then that could have made sense, but in this case, nope. So our options are directly and mainly, but I would prefer directly here because uh, what we are trying to do, when you look at the next few sentences, it's about different methods of growing orange trees, and eventually at the bottom, seeds are always there. So the only option is that you can grow directly from seeds or indirectly from seeds. Okay, mainly would mean that there are methods in which you use seeds and then there are methods in which you don't use seeds at all. But seeds are always in the background somewhere. So I'll go with directly there. The next one, for the seed of a commercial orange to grow, it must be blank moist at all times. So it must be moist. So what can you add there? Must be made moist at all times. Made moist. Yes, you can make something moist, but made moist at all times is not needed. Kept moist, you have to keep it wet. That is needed, so that's the right option. Felt moist, we are not feeling. Watered moist, again, doesn't make any sense. The next one, until they germinate and then blank them. So now out of all of these options, fixing, raising, erecting, planting. Planting goes quite naturally with the passage in which we are talking about growing trees. So go with planting. And the last one, what determines the variety of orange, while the rootstock makes the tree blank to pests and diseases. Now, what is it that you would want the tree to be to pests and diseases? We often say that, do this to make it resistant to mosquitoes. Apply this to, be resistant to pests and termites and diseases. So that's what we are going to put in here. Resistant means it can fight against that pests and diseases will not have any effect on the tree. Other options, make the tree ample to, nope, that doesn't make any sense. Makes the tree special to pests and diseases, nope. Varied, similarly, doesn't make any sense. So the right option here is resistant. So with that, we come to the end of this lecture. Don't forget to sign up for a free course on ShareeEnglish.com. All the best.